On the morning of February 4, 2016, someone tried to steal nearly $1 billion from the Central Bank of Bangladesh. They almost succeeded. But this isn't a story about a bank robbery. There were no guns, no masks, no dramatic getaways through crowded streets. The thieves were thousands of miles away, sitting behind computer screens, exploiting a single overlooked vulnerability. What makes this case extraordinary isn't just the amount they tried to steal. It's how close they came to getting away with it, and how a single typo, just one misspelled word, unraveled what could have been the perfect crime. This is the story of the Bangladesh bank cyber heist, and it reveals something terrifying about the financial system we all depend on. To understand how this happened, you need to understand SWIFT. The Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication is the backbone of global finance. Every day, banks around the world use SWIFT to send over 40 million messages, moving trillions of dollars between accounts. When your bank needs to send money to another bank, especially internationally, they don't physically move cash. They send a SWIFT message. It's essentially a secure email system, but for money. And for decades, it was considered virtually unhackable. The Bangladesh Bank, like most central banks, had a correspondent account at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Think of it like a checking account, but instead of hundreds or thousands of dollars, it held Bangladesh's foreign currency reserves. In February 2016, that account contained about $1 billion. On Thursday, February 4, 2016, staff at Bangladesh Bank arrived for work as usual. It was a normal day. Employees logged into their computers, checked their emails, began processing transactions. They had no idea that for the past several weeks, hackers had been inside their network, watching, learning, and waiting. The hackers didn't break in through some Hollywood-style exploit. They used the oldest trick in the book, a phishing email. Weeks earlier, an employee at Bangladesh Bank had received what looked like a job application. They opened the attachment. That single click was all it took. The malware began spreading through the bank's systems. But these weren't amateurs. They didn't immediately go for the money. Instead, they observed. They learned how the bank operated, when staff worked, how transactions were processed. They studied the bank's security measures, looking for weaknesses. And they found one. Bangladesh Bank used Swift Alliance Access, legitimate software for sending Swift messages. But there was a problem. The bank's security was outdated. They used second-hand, $10 routers from a local market to connect to Swift. There was no firewall between their internal network and the Swift terminal. It was like leaving the vault door open and putting a "Please don't steal" sign on it. On the evening of February 4, 2016, as staff left for the day, the hackers made their move. They had timed it perfectly. It was Thursday evening in Dhaka, which meant it was Friday morning in New York, a regular business day at the Federal Reserve. But here's what made the timing genius. Friday is a weekend holiday in Bangladesh, and Monday was a bank holiday for both Bangladesh and the Philippines. The hackers had a 72-hour window where their theft might go unnoticed. Between 8:30 p.m. Thursday night and 9 a.m. Friday morning Dhaka time, the hackers sent 35 fraudulent SWIFT messages from Bangladesh Bank's terminals to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Each message looked legitimate. They used proper formatting, correct authentication codes, and valid account numbers. The messages instructed the Federal Reserve to transfer a total of $951 million from Bangladesh's account to accounts in the Philippines and Sri Lanka. At the Federal Reserve in New York, staff began processing the requests. They had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. The messages came through SWIFT, they had valid authentication, and they appeared to come from Bangladesh Bank. They began approving the transfers. 5 transfers went through successfully, totaling $101 million. The money was sent to accounts at RCBC Bank in Manila, Philippines, accounts that had been set up just months earlier specifically for this heist. But then something unusual happened. One of the transfer requests was for an account at Shalika Foundation, a Sri Lankan non-profit organization. A Federal Reserve compliance officer noticed something odd. The foundation's name in the transfer request was misspelled. It read Shalika Foundation. That single typo, Foundation, instead of Foundation, made the officer suspicious. Why would Bangladesh Bank send millions of dollars to an organization whose name they couldn't spell correctly? The officer flagged the transaction for review and contacted Bangladesh Bank to verify. But it was Friday morning in New York, which meant Friday evening in Dhaka. Bangladesh Bank was closed for the weekend. No one answered. Saturday and Sunday passed. The hackers' window was closing. But they still had hope. The $101 million that had already been transferred was moving through the Philippines banking system. The money landed in 4 accounts at RCBC Bank. Within hours, it was withdrawn in cash and transferred to local currency exchange businesses. From there, it was moved to casinos. And here's where the hackers' plan was truly sophisticated. Casinos are a perfect place to launder money. Large cash transactions are normal, and in the Philippines, casinos aren't required to report suspicious activity to authorities. The money could be gambled, lost, won, and withdrawn clean. By the end of the weekend, the $101 million had been split up, moved through multiple accounts, gambled in casinos, and was nearly impossible to trace. Monday morning, February 8th. Staff at Bangladesh Bank arrived to find their Swift printer wasn't working. It hadn't printed any transaction confirmation since Thursday evening. That's when they discovered the printer hadn't malfunctioned. The hackers had specifically disabled it to prevent the bank from seeing the fraudulent transactions. When IT staff checked the Swift terminal, they found 35 unauthorized transfer requests totaling nearly $1 billion. Panic set in. They immediately contacted the Federal Reserve. But the Federal Reserve had already flagged the suspicious transactions. They had frozen the remaining transfers, about $850 million worth. Only the $101 million sent on Friday had gone through. Within days, the story broke internationally. The largest cyber heist in history had been stopped, mostly. But $101 million was still missing. Investigators from Bangladesh, the Philippines, the United States, and Interpol began working to trace the money. They discovered the extent of the hackers' planning. The accounts in the Philippines had been opened months earlier using fake identities. The money had been moved through a complex web of transactions designed to make it nearly impossible to follow. Casino records showed millions being gambled and withdrawn in cash. Philippine casino junket operator Kim Wong became a key figure in the investigation. He admitted receiving $35 million from the stolen funds, which had been used for gambling and converted to casino chips. He eventually returned some of the money but claimed he was an unwitting intermediary. The RCBC bank manager who had helped process the transactions was found guilty of money laundering and sentenced to prison. But the hackers themselves? They vanished. Investigators traced the cyber attack to North Korea. The malware used in the heist matched code from previous North Korean cyber attacks. The sophisticated planning, the timing, the use of casinos, it all pointed to the Lazarus Group, a state-sponsored hacking organization operating out of North Korea. But proving it was another matter. North Korea denied involvement. And even if they were responsible, what could anyone do about it? In the end, Bangladesh recovered about $15 million of the stolen $101 million. The rest disappeared into the shadows of the global financial system, likely funding North Korea's nuclear weapons program. But the real impact of the Bangladesh bank heist wasn't the money that was stolen. It was what it revealed about our financial system. For years, we've been told that the international banking system is secure, that SWIFT is unhackable, that our money is safe. The Bangladesh bank heist shattered that illusion. And it wasn't a one-time thing. After Bangladesh, similar attacks targeted banks in Vietnam, Ecuador, and Taiwan. Some succeeded, others were stopped. But the message was clear. If hackers could penetrate the central bank of Bangladesh and almost steal $1 billion, they could target any bank. SWIFT responded by implementing new security measures. Banks were required to upgrade their systems, add multi-factor authentication, and improve their cybersecurity. But these measures came after the damage was done. The Bangladesh bank heist forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Our entire financial system runs on trust and a series of computer systems that are constantly under attack. Every time you check your bank balance on your phone, transfer money to a friend, or make an online purchase, you're trusting that the systems protecting your money are secure. Most of the time, they are. But the hackers who targeted Bangladesh Bank proved that with enough patience, planning, and skill, those systems can be penetrated. And here's what keeps security experts awake at night. The Bangladesh bank hackers almost succeeded. If not for a single typo, one misspelled word, they would have stolen nearly $1 billion and potentially gotten away with it. Think about that. The largest bank heist in history was stopped not by sophisticated security systems, not by artificial intelligence monitoring, not by expert analysts. It was stopped by a typo. Since 2016, banks have spent billions upgrading their security. International cooperation has improved. SWIFT has added new safeguards, but the fundamental vulnerability remains. The global financial system is a network of interconnected computers, and computers can be hacked. The hackers behind the Bangladesh bank heist have never been caught. The Lazarus Group continues to operate, targeting banks, cryptocurrency exchanges, and financial institutions around the world. They've stolen an estimated $2 billion over the past decade. And they're not alone. Cybercriminals and state-sponsored hackers from Russia, China, Iran, and other countries are constantly probing for weaknesses in the global financial system. Bangladesh Bank rebuilt its security systems. They fired officials, implemented new procedures, and joined international efforts to combat cybercrime. But the $86 million that vanished is still gone. For the rest of us, the Bangladesh bank heist is a reminder that in our increasingly digital world, security is never absolute. The money in your bank account exists primarily as numbers in a database, and databases can be hacked. On February 4, 2016, someone almost stole $1 billion with nothing but a computer and patience. They were stopped by luck and a typo. Next time, we might not be so fortunate.